Dr. Allen, what do you make of the news that there could well be 19 terrorists who've made their way across the Channel, currently living at the taxpayers' expense in hotels right here in this country?
Well, Patrick, it's horrific, isn't it, for any number of reasons. I mean, you start off with the obvious principle that we just don't know who is coming into the country. There has been one of the criticisms all the way along of the whole small boats issue. We can't tell who people are until they arrive. They frequently don't have documentation. And from what I understand, a number of these people have only been picked up because we've been able to cross-reference their fingerprints against data held that we've discovered from other countries. So it's quite clear that you've got a problem with people coming in. And of course, you've got a secondary problem, haven't you? Which is, let's assume they're living here on the taxpayers' largesse in hotels, in other places. They've got the opportunity, firstly, to potentially abscond from there. Secondly, they could, of course, be radicalizing people around them. Given the length of time this whole process is taking at the moment in terms of processing, we surely have a problem of potential radicalization within the places refugees are being held, migrants are being held, and we just don't have a clear enough picture of what's happening there at the moment.
I can't help but wonder, Dr. Allen, whether or not we are witnessing now the clearest example of the deep-seated flaws of what is going on in the Channel, whereby we don't know who these people are or where they come from, which is a gift for terrorists who can come across, who are then staying at the taxpayers' expense, who then game the system by trying to claim asylum, which means that we can't deport them, and goodness only knows what happens after that. I mean, if anyone needed proof that something needs to be done and done incredibly quickly on the grounds of national security, surely this is it.
Yes, I'd agree with you. Quite clearly, we now have the evidence we were, sort of always suspected that there were national security risks here, that because we didn't know who could gain access to the country, it was quite possible and plausible, in fact, that the worst elements would try and gain entry. And let's not forget, people coming in are utilizing criminal gangs. It's a perfect, sort of way for criminals to get in that sense, and terrorists to get in is by using these methods. So it's been demonstrated that there's a problem. We can see the outcome, which is that we have suspected terrorists now on our soil. It's not as if, by the way, Patrick, we have no problem with domestic terrorists and the watch list already. We're now adding to that problem by not being able to understand who it is who's coming in and preventing them from doing so. So I think it does comprehensively make that case, that national security case, that we need to have firm control of the illegal migrant routes across the Channel.
Dr. Allen, do you not think this highlights as well the lunacy of people who bust themselves in as anti-fascist groups or whatever to a variety of different hotels, often in rural English villages, who say that it is just a bunch of frothing racists who don't like the idea of immigrants living anywhere near them, when actually locals could very, very justifiably now say, I'm not sure whether or not some of these people might be terrorists?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it gives plenty of people, kind of excuses or real reasons for acting the way they do now. And this is the issue. It is, once again, a situation where if you don't know who's coming in, you can't possibly with any confidence then judge how best to deal with them as a result of it. And the best way to handle this is quite clear. The best way is to ensure there is a system in place that means that people who illegally enter are processed quickly. And if that means dispatch them to a safe third country, then that's the optimal way of doing it. The worst result of all would be to allow people to languish in places months on end with unclear systems where they then game that system, as you've suggested, and you end up potentially with potential terrorists here on our soil.